Oh god. She's gonna have a breakdown because of this. Takano could feel her blood freezing, starting from her feet. Yep, there it goes. She just couldn't believe what was happening. At least 48 hours? At least 48 hours since the death of the Queen Carrier? Takano just couldn't understand.
そんなことありえない。だって、じゃあ村人はどうして平然としてるの？早ければ36時間の段階で、つまり夕べの時点で、かなりの末期発症が出ていてもおかしくないじゃない。
しかし、諜報員によると、これはかなり確実性の高い情報とのことで、村への進行上の影響を危惧して、現在署内に強い箝口令が敷かれているということです。
確実性が高いって言うなら、あんたたちが見張ってたあの家のフルでリカは誰なのよ。
チャンサー、監視体制は完璧です。フルでリカは間違いなく現在あの家です。監視体制が敷かれて以来、彼女が外出したことはただの一度もありません。中にいたことも入江所長が確認なさっています。絶対にありえません。
Oh boy. Yeah, well, let's see. Like, if Irie converted himself, you know, they can either believe like two things. Either it is a lie that Rika has died for like 48 hours, or, you know, Irie has been lying to them.
ならどういうことよ。警察が死体はリカで48時間前に死んだって言ってるのよ。それがデマだっていうの？デマ？そうよ、勘違いかもしれない。だって私の作戦なら、今日の夜私は岐阜県警内の工作員を使って同じ手法で偽装死を装うつもりだったんじゃない。これは偽装よ。いやデマよ。何かの勘違いに違いない。
Takano wasn't confused because she was still half asleep. No, honestly, no. Takano was afraid. Her grandfather wrote in his article that within 48 hours of the Queen Carrier's death, everyone in the village would develop terminal stage symptoms. This would mean that he had been wrong. What about everyone who believed his words? What would they think?
失礼します、サンサ。東京の野村様よりお電話です。
Okay, well, this is actually very important. Because, you know, I was questioning this sort of stuff before about Takano and her belief in the Queen Carrier theory. Like, I was questioning myself. Does she actually believe that the Queen Carrier theory is true? Or is it that she knew that it was a fake theory that would not happen, but she wanted to carry this mission in the first place to prove that the research is true? But not just that, but knowing that the Queen Carrier was a fake too. So, from this conversation, it does seem that she actually believed it. Or rather, it doesn't seem like she had any doubts, like at any point, that the Queen Carrier thing may be untrue. She may truly believe that if 48 hours have passed, the villagers would have died. I mean, granted, now with the 48-hour operation right over here, she's gonna question that sort of stuff now. But before, she may have actually believed it, without like any doubts whatsoever.
私が電話をしている間に、大至急、沖宮署の死体を調べさせなさい。
現在は非常に困難です。協力員が明朝に出勤すれば、沖宮署へアプローチをかけさせ、確実に状況を確認できます。
その早朝というのは何時？午前5時？ 6時？大至急よ。急がせなさい。おはようございます。
Good morning.
高野です。
All the union members were gathered in the office of Okonogi Gardeners, which served as garrison for the mountain dogs in Okinomiya.
ああ、わかった。沖宮署の方が分かり次第、俺とサンサに連絡しろ。それより、R 宅の監視体制だが、R の在宅確認をなぜ怠った？
風邪だったということで、受話器を取らなかったものと思いました。その後、 入江所長が訪問し在宅を確認したため、それをもって在宅確認としておりました。
Yeah, you know, at this point, they are definitely gonna question, like, Iria's stance on all this and what the fuck he's been doing, like, all this time. Like, they're definitely gonna come after Irie. So, he is definitely gonna be in danger soon enough. He definitely should be careful.
Amazing. R 宅に少なくとも誰かがいるのは間違いないんだな。
はい、それは間違いなく。隊長、R 宅に突入してはまだギリギリ可能な時間帯です。
そいつはサンサの許可がなけりゃできる。サンサも沖宮署の件が判明するまで突入許可は出すまい。突入命令に備えて R 宅監視を増員。8人体制に増やせ。
隊長、今日は境内で祭りがある日です。監視はできるでしょうが、突入はおそらく本日深夜まで不可能です。
うまいタイミングだ。
I don't think it'll be possible to enter until tomorrow around midnight. Increase the number of observers at the residence. Well, it definitely is a little bit difficult because Rika in the Satoko's residence, it is near the shrine, so that's a little bit complicated with people around.
うますぎる。うますぎるんじゃねえのかこいつは。
Okanogi's rusty yet wild instincts were sounding an alarm. He sensed that someone was attacking them. He sensed that his enemy had begun to attack. He realized that the enemy had taken the initiative. People usually take a deep breath before the attack. That moment right before they strike is their most valuable. That moment right before they strike is their most vulnerable. Okanogi assumed that whoever his enemy was, they were led by an excellent commander who knew the precise moment to strike. Bunch of little kids.
そういや富武に先日の診療所での会合に欠席したってな。
でしたでしょうか。確認させます。
サンサ、俺に奴がどこに行ったか知らないかとか聞いたよな。
まさか富武2が。
ウグイスで富武の寝床を確認しろ。こいつは一杯食わされたかもしらんぞ。
Okay, well, you know, at the very least, this confirms that Tomitake is still alive, because otherwise you would think that, oh god, they must have known, even before we started the operation, so they could have done something to Tomitake, but no, this is coming as a surprise to them, therefore Tomitake is still alive.
Sate. もう後戻りはできんぞい。
Indeed, it is time for action.
さて、これで大山明動して何が出るっすかね。
Kumagai was trembling with excitement.
クマちゃん、私は通信センターの方へ様子を見てきます。ここは絶対に死守してください。
なっせ、死んでも誰も通さないです。
あとのわしの役目はかかってくる電話をごまかすことだの。わしもわしの持ち場へ戻るぞい。熊谷、ここは頼むぞ。
任してください。
Oh man, you know, I cannot shake that thought in the back of my mind. So first thing is, well, Iri is definitely in danger. He is going to be suspected by the Mondogs and Takano. At least we confirmed that Tomitake is still alive somewhere, and he's in hiding. But now a new problem arises in my head that, to quote something that the kids would say these days, there might be an imposter among us. Which I'm thinking it's the forensic investigator. I don't know much about the forensic investigator, to be quite honest. He could be like a spy, so I don't know. This was a chance to show Oishi what he was made of. Oishi was on his way to the communication center. already communications and phone calls pass through there first. During business hours, each section answers its own phone calls. But when they aren't open, the communication center answers them instead. Now, the thing about that, though, is if the forensic investigator, was a spy, like an imposter, they would have told Takano and the Mound Dogs up until this point that, hey, something suspicious going on. But no, Takano and the Mound Dogs, they are being surprised by this. So, no, I don't think that forensic investigator is actually with them. So, the forensic investigator would have told them by now that something odd is going to happen. So, I think that the forensic investigator is safe too.
どうですかこちらは。
はい。ついさっき外線経由が鑑識課の直通番号に1本。
Unless there might be the surprise twist that the forensic investigator is from a completely different faction that would want Takano and the Mound Dogs to be taken down, and thus the forensic investigator is excited about this mission, but not for the reasons that we may think of, that it's exciting and all that.
相手は
県警本部大高警部です。
おお、大高くんか。
Otaka?
へえ。
Oishi grinned. The enemy had started to move. They must have bribed someone inside the police department to be their spy. And he had started to move, just as they planned. Hold on a second. There was an outside call for forensics calling directly just a few minutes ago. Chief Inspector Otaka. Oh, if this Otaka person is the spy, they're gonna question, they wanted to see the information from the forensics and all that to see what the fuck is going on, and then tell Takano and the Mound Dogs, possibly. It could be. Oishi was surprised to learn that it had been Otaka. Oishi had never liked Otaka, because he constantly boasted about his academic background and always opposed Oishi, who believes in relying on experience. I don't even know who Otaka is, to be honest. They didn't get along at all when they worked together at the prefectural police department.
通話が終わったようです。
じい様に聞いてみよう。ピッポッパッと。あ、もしもし。おーっと、大丈夫。私いかがでした？
青にさいが生きがりおってからに鼻であしらってやったわ。やっこさん、戸坂に来とる。所長の出勤を待って朝一でこっちに直接踏み込んでくるぞ。
相変わらずことを派手にしたがる性分だな。てめえの体一つで喧嘩もできないんですかね。
わしもますますに面白くなってきたぜ。今の電話で眠気が飛んだわ。やはりいるな。お前の言う怪しげな連中がゾロゾロと這い出してくるのを感じるぜ。
I can feel it. I can feel the imposters, everywhere, Oishi. It gets me so pumped up. I wanna smoke my fifth packet of cigarette. Well, things are getting interesting now. What's up next? Hey, demons, over here. Come further in. Let's lure the demons, Oishi.
もしもし、富武です。
お
はようございます、富武に。早朝にすみません。山犬に動きがありましたので、ご連絡します。つい先ほど、山犬の全隊員に非常招集がかけられました。目的は不明です。そうですか。動きがありましたか。
Tomitake turned on the light next to his bed and put on his glasses as he answered.
それから、そちらの警察内で妙な情報が流れています。まだ裏付けが取れませんが、女王感染者であるフルデリカの死体が発見されたというのです。詳しい話を。収容されていた身元不明死体の身元がフルデリカだったというものです。死後48時間を経過しているとか。緊急マニュアル第34号の発令基準を超えた事態ですが、現在のところHinamizawa地区は平穏が保たれているとのことです。そちらでは何か情報が入っていませんか。いえ、私は沖宮にいますのでわかりませんが、それはありえないでしょう。
Okay, so if I'm understanding this right, and again, I'm not 100% sure about the bloodhounds and all that, but if we can keep the Bloodhounds thinking that Rika has died for like 48 hours, they're gonna think that the emergency manual cannot be executed. Therefore, they definitely cannot help Takano and the Mount Dogs. So that way, we can keep the Bloodhounds on our side, and they can help us against Takano and the Mount Dogs.
多分女王感染者の死亡は何かの誤報だと思います。
こちらも誤報を疑っていますが、分析では情報の精度は極めて高く、ほぼ未確認ですが、鑑識課職員複数が証言しているとも。
しかし、
Tomitake realized something. He realized that the Okinomiya police station was Oishi's territory. He also realized that this must be the work of Rika and her friends. Oh, wait. Tomitake was not informed about this? I guess so. They haven't really talked. Like, that's what I was worried about before, so he doesn't know about the operation yet. Ugh. Tomitake tried to think calmly. Even if they didn't know who their enemy was, it's obvious the emergency manual is the signal for an explosion. So they must have come up with the idea to destroy that signal. The foundation of the emergency manual is that unless something is done about it, within 48 hours after the Queen Carrier's death, all the villagers will develop terminal stage symptoms. So if nothing happens after 48 hours, there is no need for the emergency manual. And with that, the Mount Dogs have been called in. Okay, well, good. Even if Tomitake was not informed about this, he has reached this kind of conclusion like quickly. That's good.
もしもし、富武に。
はい、失礼。どうやら現状を考えると、入江機関に不穏な動きがないと断言することは難しいようです。一切に入江機関を緊急査察されるよう進言をお願いします。また、最悪の事態に備え、番犬部隊への予備命令も進言します。
了解しました。9時になればもっとまとまった連絡が入ってくると思います。山犬造反となればそちらも危険です。十分ご注意を。
もちろん用心してます。
では次の定期連絡は9時に。
It was 6 a.m. Tomitake would get another call in 3 hours. Now, if I'm to think about this, how would Takano and the Mount Dogs react to this? I get the feeling that, I mean, obviously, like, I'm questioning this sort of stuff because I don't know, like, the full plan that the kids have developed, like, thus far. Like, after the operation starts, I'll learn as it goes. Like, this is gonna be quite a surprise to me, like, what the kids are gonna do, like, during this commotion. But what I am thinking would happen is, Takano has learned about this. This could be, like a game-changing thing. Like, if Takano is not gonna react to this quickly and do something about this, the emergency manual will never be deployed. So now that she learned that Rika may have possibly died, not only is she gonna try to confirm it, but even if it cannot be confirmed, she's gonna fake. Like, she's gonna try her best to deploy the emergency manual, even if it was like after 48 hours. And afterwards, once like the emergency manual has been deployed, things are gonna be faked, and Takano and the Mount Dogs are gonna say that it has been like less than 48 hours, even if technically it's not true. So they're gonna try and fake it to make the emergency manual to be believed and such. If you guys understand what I'm trying to say over here, like, they're gonna try their best to correct this sort of stuff. Even if they're gonna reach the conclusion that Rika has died way after 48 hours, they're gonna try and take action so that they can correct it and make the emergency manual operation, like, you know, legit. So if they try to do that, then we can definitely tell the Bloodhounds, hey, Takano and the Mount Dogs are trying to enact the emergency manual wrongly. It has been going on like way past 48 hours, so they cannot do that. You have to stop them, Bloodhounds. They are doing something illegal right over here. Like, they're doing something against the emergency manual. That could be like a way for this to go on. Like, if Takano Takano is enacting like the emergency manual like past 48 hours, then that will be a no-no, and thus we could get the help of the Bloodhounds for them to stop that.
ウグイス1より前へ。富武は406号室だ。
At least that's the way I understand it.
屋外監視、問題ないか。
ウグイス4、野外監視問題なし。
ウグイス5、フロア問題なし。ウグイス3、室内は無音。多分、就寝してます。
There was a do not disturb sign on Tomitake's door. Perhaps he stayed up very late last night and was planning to sleep in. This was a great chance for the Nightingales.
いいか、生かして捉えろ。
Oh no.
三佐のオーダーだぞ。始めろ。
Yeah, they are definitely gonna capture Tomitake. Let's not forget that their plan was to kill Tomitake for the fifth curse and all that. So, since this whole Rika and the 48 hours has taken Takano by surprise, they are gonna try and capture Tomitake like this early on. They tried to break into Tomitake's room very quietly. Obviously, it was a simple job for them to pick a hotel room's lock. The two members at the door communicated with each other using sign language. Even knowing he was asleep, it would be a good idea not to barge in. They opened the door very cautiously and very quietly. The room's interior was organized but tasteless, typical of cheap hotels. The only furnishings were a bed, a small desk, and a coin-operated TV. Coin-operated TV? This is the first time that I'm hearing about a coin-operated TV. Is it a TV that only works if you input like coins inside? That's actually the first time I'm hearing about this. Clearly, only one person could stay in this room. Although I could believe it because, like, 20th century and all that. And they're in bed. Tomitake. Couldn't be found.
どうしたウグイス3、応答しろ。
Yes!
そう、もぬけの殻です。
It was still early in the morning, but the room was empty.
どういうことでしょう。富武には野鳥撮影と散策の趣味がありました。まさか早朝からどこかへ出かけているのでは。
いや、違う。こいつは多分やられたぞ。
The do not disturb sign was on the door. With that sign there, the housekeepers wouldn't come in the room, so they wouldn't know if it was empty or not. The sign had probably been down there since at least the day before. Knowing that Tomitake was planning to stay for a long period, the hotel hadn't really paid much attention. In other words, the room had been empty since then.
多分、奴は襲撃を予見して宿を変えたんだ。そうか、それでしばらく姿を現さなかったのか。三佐に緊急連絡。畜生、こっちの作戦が漏れているぞ。
Okonogi realized that he had been beaten to the punch. Okonogi realized that he had been beaten to the punch. The foundation of the emergency menu had collapsed, and with that the basis of the final operation was shaky. Okonogi felt that the major had panicked and rushed into confirming what was going on too hastily. If Tomitake suspected this and went into hiding, then after caught wind of that, he was sure to come grab us by our tails.
全てができすぎだぜ。くそ、向こうの計略にきれいに決まっちまったみたいだぞ。
Okonogi tried to calm himself. If he was going to investigate in secret, he could assume that Tomitake was still nearby. The department in Tokyo must be the one conducting the investigation, so he must be waiting somewhere for a report from that department. Tomitake was probably at a new hotel, probably somewhere in Okinomiya.
東京班のカラスに連絡を取れ。おそらく調査部が定期連絡してる相手がいるはずだ。その相手の番号を調べさせろ。そいつが獅子骨市内の番号だったらビンゴだ。
Okonogi was confident about his hunch. But if what he was thinking is correct, that meant his identity was about to be exposed. It also meant his operation had failed before it even started. But it wasn't a checkmate quite yet. If he could prove that the dead body at the Okunimiya police station wasn't R, then everything would go back to square one. All he had to do was capture Tomitake and then check the body at the station. That was all. Okay.
隊長、カラスに連絡が取れました。通話内容は確認不能ですが、 電話番号だけならなんとかできると。ただし時間が欲しいそうです。
どの程度？
ほんの数時間ほどだそうです。
ほんのときたもんか。せかしゃしねえが可能な限り急げと伝えろ。
It was a little past 6 a.m. It was already light outside, but still too early for the cicadas to start their morning chorus. They had endured the first wave. It was now a matter of how quickly they could recover. Okonogi just hoped that the major didn't throw a fit.
隊長、カラスより連絡です。電話番号は調査中。なお調査部は9時を定時連絡時刻に定めているようです。
あと3時間か。
He looked up at the clock. Even the little things were beginning to bother Okonogi. Every time the second hand moved, he became more impatient, realizing the check-in time was getting closer and closer.
それから調査部長の岡一佐が番犬に対し予備命令を発令しました。任務は示されていないとのことです。
ってことは引っ込みがつくような招集ってわけだな。大事でなけりゃ訓練ってことにしてごまかそうってらしい。大丈夫だ、まだ時間があるってことだ。
続報です。調査部長が幕僚長の自宅へ電話しています。内容は不明。
大丈夫だ、大丈夫。まだギリギリ大丈夫だ。
The Bloodhound's standby orders meant they saw a very high chance of the Ariakey Institute revolting. The people on site must be practically certain of it. Although it's not as difficult to execute as the emergency manual, ordering out the Bloodhounds isn't that easy. They only did so because they realized that some kind of trouble is afoot. Okonogi was sure that the people who wanted to conclude matters peacefully were trying to settle things down by saying it was just a mistake. An order to the Bloodhounds to stand by without clarifying mission is like a middle ground in that sense. But the head of the research division had called the chief of staff. This was a very dangerous situation for the Mountain Dogs. In other words, the higher ranks of the SDF, or people even higher than them, had decided that the Bloodhounds could take the field. The uniforms are hot-blooded, but the suits always push for peaceful resolutions. They still hadn't decided which way they want to go yet. Our loss wasn't certain yet. Win or tie, everyone was riding on the same table. If that was the case, the call coming in at 9 a.m. from the research division didn't bode well. Okonogi couldn't say why, but he had that impression. It was just his wild instinct doing its job. He could guess that the people in Tokyo were going to ask Tomitake about the situation in detail, and then decide what to do based on that. It was possible that the head of the division, or even the chief of staff himself, might come out on the phone. Then the Bloodhounds might get an order as soon as the 9 a.m. phone conversation was over, which would result in his defeat. Tokyo was still unsure. Some were still thinking it was some kind of mistake, or they wanted to think it was some kind of mistake. If Tomitake didn't answer the phone, they might send some people immediately, but they wouldn't order out the Bloodhounds. There was a chance it could end in a draw. If they found out that the body didn't actually belong to R, then although it would corner them, they still had a good chance of winning. But they'd lose the possibility of a complete victory. Okonogi knew that Takano's clients hadn't ordered anything else, but exactly that. He didn't want to admit it, but the enemy's surprise attack had succeeded.
隊長、
やかましいんで落ち着けや。連中はまだ確信してない。疑っちゃいるがバレちゃいない。まだギリギリ大丈夫なんだ。とにかく先に情報を得た方が勝つ。連中が尻尾をつかむか、俺たちが尻尾をつかむか。確かに初戦の奇襲で徹底的にやられたが、まだ全滅じゃない。だから白旗を上げるんじゃねえ。とにかく待つんだ。カラスが富武の潜伏先を暴く。警察の協力員が R の死亡の真偽を暴く。とにかく今は待つんだ。耐えるんだ。
失礼します。高野三佐からです。相当ご立腹の様子です。
くそ。伏してチャンスを待とうって時に 俺はお姫様のおもりかよ。あ、もしもし、おこのぎです。まあそう焦らずに。まだそう決まったわけじゃありませんね。まずは落ち着いてコーヒーでも。
Okonogi tried to change the subject while pretending to laugh, but all he could hear was Takano's frantic voice. He couldn't even understand what she was trying to say. The second hand on the clock ticked on. Who was going to be able to smile at the end of it all? Today was going to be a long battle. Okonogi's instincts told him so.
お疲れさんです。今のは誰からですか？
今度はうちの花垂れ所長じゃわい。だんだんと手強くなってきたぞい。だがわしの敵じゃないな。事務や風情が技術屋に勝てると思ったか。しかし所長が今日所長会のゴルフでよかったわい。直接来られたらちと面倒だったぞ。
ゴルフ場から電話とは仕事してんだかしてないんだか。大高くんめ、所長と一緒に乗り込みたかったろうに。今頃悔しがってるぞ。
間接攻撃でダメなら次は直接攻撃ですかね。乗り込んできますか、大高のやつ。
所長が捕まらないんじゃ自分で乗り込むしかないと踏むでしょう。もうじき8時半か。下の窓口が開く頃だ。
Morning had finally arrived. The chorus of cicadas had begun. That familiar sound would make one think it was just another day, but it was hardly going to be normal. It wasn't just an ordinary Sunday. Oishi and his men already realized they were grazing the tip of a huge conspiracy.
大高君の性分だと多分堂々と胸を張って正面からやってくるでしょう。
自分だけが正義だと思ってるやつにありがちっすね。
わしはここで電話を耐える。お前らはそいつを頼むぞ。
よし、お出迎えで行きましょうかね。クマちゃんはここを頼みます。
The lobby of the Okuniya police was just like that of any other police station. It could hardly be said to have a welcoming atmosphere. Some of the tiles on the floor were broken and cracked, so sometimes people tripped on them. Those spots were covered by pieces of cardboard, and there was a sign that said, "Caution, watch your step." There was also a pot with a dead plant in it. Jesus, he was far from a friendly lobby. Unlike hospitals and banks, there wasn't a line of people at the counters of the police station, but there were a few sitting on a sofa waiting for the counters to open. And they would open soon. Some workers were standing by on the other side of the counters. Otaka was snobbish enough that Oishi didn't want to deal with him first thing in the morning. If only he was a pretty young woman with big boobs. Oishi and his men were on a very important job. If Otaka found out that Rika Furude's death had been faked, the operation was finished. They were only able to shake up the enemy now, while Rika Furude's death is still on the books. They had to stall for every minute, every second they could, so Tomitake could seize hold of the tail that was popping out. So if the truth about Rika Furude's death was exposed before Tomitake had that chance, the enemy would recover. The emergency manual would regain its credibility, and although the enemy wouldn't enact it immediately, they would try again for sure. Rika Furude had detected the conspiracy ahead of time, but that was a miracle. The divine winds. Japan had prevented Mongol invasions twice in the past with such miracles, but nothing like that happened during World War II. They might not be so lucky next time. They might not get another chance. There might be no next time at all. Unless they defeated them this time, they would never win again. While it was possible to do some serious damage, a tight game would inevitably lead to the enemy's victory. They had to completely expose what the enemy was up to, allowing Tomitake to call in a suppression unit to defeat them. That was why Oishi had to stop their vanguard here. His job, therefore, was an extremely important one. If the enemy's conspiracy succeeded, Hinamizawa would be destroyed, and more than 2,000 villagers would be executed in a gas disaster. Either way, the incident would never go public, but people's lives depend on him. Jesus! Yeah, you know, when you're saying it like that, Oishi, better be careful, man. I feel like this is more, like now this is more than just your pension and your future. Oishi was violating his professional duties. However, he had to do what was right. Oishi fought back to when the old man taught him that. Someone who, despite the hot weather, was wearing a suit, came in through the automatic sliding door. He had 2 of his colleagues with him. Oh god. Otaka and 2 people, okay. He was showing off his authority, like he always did.
Yo! Ohayo gozaimasu, Otaka-kun.
これはおはようございます、大石さん。それから私のことは君と呼ばないでください。もうあなたに君で呼ばれるような立場ではありません。
まあまあ、そんなこと言わずに、大高くん。同じ宅で麻雀を打ってよしみじゃないですか?
Otaka seemed disgusted to hear that. He used to boast about being a good mahjong player, but Oishi once beat him badly in front of many people, which hurt his pride.
あなたとゆっくり休校を温めたいところですが、今日は急ぎの用事がありますので、失礼させていただきます。
Nah, hold on. We do have some stuff to talk about here.
まあまあ、そう言わずに。交流剣道大会で少女の筆行委託を忘れちまったと。あんたが私に泣きついてきたんで、こっそりステージ裏で書いてあげたから、無事表彰式ができたんじゃないの。
その件については感謝していますが、今は関係ないことです。
ありゃ、感謝してくれてましたの？そりゃ失礼。そういう話はとんと聞いたことがなかったもので、県警では私が書きたいとわがまま言ったから筆行委託を断ってわざわざ書かせてやったんだって話で通ってましたよ。症状の字があまりにうまくないのでどういうことなんだと本部長に聞かれて以来のあなたの言い訳のはずですが。
さあ、どうなんでしょうね。誰かが誤解してるんじゃないですか。私はそんなこと言ってませんよ。
県警本部はあなたの島だろうが、あいにくここは沖宮署でね。あんたの思い通りにはそうそうならんってこです。
ほう、それはどういう意味ですか、大石さん。
あんたがここへ何しに来たかは知らんが、あんたの島はゴグラだ。沖宮じゃない。おとなしく引き上げてもらいましょう。
何の権限があってだね。
そちらこそ何の権限があってですかな。
県警本部で現在捜査中のある秘匿捜査事件についてだ。
Tell us in detail.
その件に関連があると思われる身元不明死体がこちらにあると聞いてね。
なら電話でお問い合わせを。
なるほど。どうやら鑑識課の連中とつるんでいるようですね。所長から検視報告をすべて県警本部に引き渡すよう命令が来ているはずです。
その件については鑑識から所長に説明が入っているはずです。まだ検視中でね。ちょいとうちのミスで身元が特定されたような情報が内部に流れちまったようですが、ですので報告書を出すにはちょいとお時間をいただかないとならないわけです。
ならその検視に我々も立ち会わせてもらおう。
嫌です。
はあ私は県警本部の秘匿事件担当として。
それが本当なら、私はあんたの刑事魂を疑わない。刑事魂は高潔だ。そりゃ、お給料がもらえなかったら、こんな商売誰だってやりゃしないです。ですがね、それだけじゃ測れない魂がなきゃ、刑事は務められないんです。あんたにその魂があるってんなら、私はここを譲りますよ。
The look in Oishi's eyes made clear that anger that was roiling within him. As he looked into those eyes, Otaka recalled all kinds of frightening memories. Otaka didn't want Oishi to sense his fear, but he couldn't prevent himself from loudly swallowing. Yeah.
なら、そこを譲ってもらいましょう。私も刑事魂でここに来ています。そこをどいてください。
なら、私をその刑事魂で押してどかしてみなさい。
Yeah, show us your true spirit.
ほれ。
Cause we don't sense anything here. I don't smell like any policeman's spirit like at all. I smell a coward's spirit.
なんですって。
あんたの刑事魂が私の刑事魂に負けないくらいに重いものなら、私なんか簡単にどかせちゃうはずですよ。ほれ、試してみなさい。
You try a wrong move, Otaka. You try a wrong move. And the ACs in this room will be targeted on you the second you make a wrong move. Don't go against the AC god. Oishi was obviously saying that he had no intention of letting Otaka through. How could he do this? Otaka was confused. Otaka was an elite policeman at the prefectural police headquarters. He believed academic background and performance record were enough to earn trust. No. He has been working hard under that belief, but Oishi doesn't acknowledge that, and he doesn't even respect him. He's a scumbag. He was the worst type of person, one who tried to establish their meaning and purpose only through rough means, refusing to acknowledge everything about their superiors in order to protect their own pride, as uncivilized people often did. Otaka had been thinking ever since they worked together. Why did people trust in someone like Oishi? Why did people respect someone like him? Why did people appreciate someone like Oishi more than they did Otaka? Why?
どきたまえ。今すぐどかなければ捜査妨害で君を告発することもできるんだぞ。
ほう、そりゃどんな捜査ですかな。話してくれりゃ協力もしますよ。
だから君もわからない人だな。秘匿捜査だから君ごとき田舎署の刑事には話せんのだ。
なるほど。全部話せないなら一部でもいい。あんたはその仕事に何を背負ってますか？
背負う？何を言ってるんだ？
私はね、背負ってますよ。私の後ろには村の住民の命運2000人分があります。
Damn.
あんたを通せば2000人、いや、その親戚やご家族も含めればもっと大勢の人が悲しむことになる。あんた、分かってますよね。
何の話かさっぱりだ。
Damn. Like laying it like right in front of the table, just like that.
腹を割ってやる。あんたの飼い主は恐ろしいことを企んでいる。あんたはそこまで想像がついちゃいないだろうが、何千人もの人が不幸になる恐ろしい陰謀を企んでるんだ。そいつがくじかれる瀬戸際だってんで、多分就寝中だったあんたを叩き起こしてすぐに調べろと命じたんだ。
Okay, we're doing this.
いくらの小遣いで頼まれてるかは知らんが、それがあんたの刑事魂より重いってんなら。
Oishi stopped talking there, but his eyes continued to speak after that.
何を言っているのかさっぱりわからないですよ。とにかくそこを通してください。
You know it, don't you, you scumbag? Otaka's baffled behavior confirmed what Oishi had just said. He had been bought off by someone shady, though maybe he didn't think that he was bought. Probably thought he was just filing the request to confirm Rikafu with his body, as a favor from someone in the information network, he assumed. He billed himself. I won't be surprised if he knows a lot more. Of course, the part about it being a classified investigation was a lie. But when an elite policeman from the prefectural headquarters said it was a classified investigation, everyone would grovel and salute him. But, Oishi didn't salute him at all.
話になりません。このことは後日必ず所長に抗議させていただきます。
おう、まだんかい。
お、
話はまだ終わってません。
As Otaka tried to walk by, Oishi grabbed him by the arm. Otaka tried to make him let go, but Oishi was just too strong.
話してください、大石さん。
ありゃ、大して力を入れてるつもりはないんですがね。
It's just that you're a weak sack of crap.
あんたに真の刑事魂があったら、こんなのには屈しない。あんたの揺るぎない正義が、私なんかあっさり打ち倒して踏み越えていくでしょう。だが、あんたはこの程度の腕も剥がせない。なんでかわかりますか？
話せ！
てめえには刑事魂がないからだよ。
Oishi let go of his shoulder, and Otaka tumbled onto the floor, sliding for more than 2 meters. Just like that. Oishi didn't even do anything, he just let go of his shoulder, and yet he just tumbled as if he was struck by a powerful punch.
これは捜査妨害だ。公務執行妨害、いや、傷害の現行犯だぞ。緊急逮捕しろ。
Otaka ordered his 2 colleagues around, but they didn't know what to do. Oishi was also a policeman, and obviously there was something more going on between them. Besides, they could sense one thing. Their instincts were telling them that Oishi was far stronger than them. They were no match at all.
どうしましたか、大石さん。
Some officers were gathering in the lobby. They all looked puzzled.
いえいえ、県警の青二歳が筋の通らんことを言い出したもので、ちょいと先輩として指導したまでです。
The officers alternatively looked between Oishi and Otaka. They knew something was going on, but they didn't know the circumstances, so they didn't know which one to stop. Oishi was respected by the policemen of the Onizumiya station. Everyone respected him. If Oishi said that Otaka was being selfish, then he must be at fault. Oishi was generally seen as sensible. All of them thought that Oishi would only do this in public place like a lobby, if it was something major. Otaka was feeling humiliated to get such attention. He stood up calm, hiding his humiliation with anger.
なるほど。あなたの言い分は分かりました。私も子供の使いでここに来ているわけじゃない。
いい根性です。胸を貸しますよ。かかってこい、青二歳が。お前はそんなもんか。
くそー。
Give me the 1-2. Give me the 1-2.
お前の刑事魂はそんなもんか。俺はhinamizawa2000人を背負ってる。諸葛管内2000人の命を預かってる。ならば2000人を押し退ける気迫で今回や。
It was like watching a match between a sumo wrestler and a small child. No matter how many times Otaka tried to tackle Oishi, he simply crumbled against him. Oishi stood firm, as if his feet were rooted to the earth. By the third time Otaka tumbled to the floor, he finally realized that he had been provoked. He caught his breath and fixed his hair.
わかりました。ならばお教えしましょう。私が担当している事件は、あなたもご存知の S 号絡みです。
Liar.
その経由で とある方面から真偽を確かめてほしいと依頼されたのです。
回りくどい言い方じゃわかりませんな。もうちょいわかるようにお願いします。
何しろ疑われているのはHinamizawa地区では信仰上のマスコットともいえる少女の死なのです。それが事実かどうかすぐに確かめなければなりません。
だから電話で説明したでしょ。現在調査中。まだまだお時間がかかります。
いや、言いたくなかったんですがね。この依頼はもう隠すのはやめましょう。あなたの大の苦手の園崎議員からです。
Liar.
はあ、紋付き袴の怖い人ね。
Otaka is trying to use Oishi's weakness. He thinks that if he lies that has something to do with the Sonozakis, then Oishi would agree with the investigation, thinking that maybe we could get some dirt on the Sonozakis and get them finally reveal their dirty tricks that has been going on for years. But Oishi knows that there's nothing wrong with the Sonozakis, save for the Yakuza stuff and all that. But besides that, they had nothing to do with the murders in the past years. So, in that sense, you Otaka, you are using that weakness that is no longer a weakness to Oishi. You have come up with a plan that is too late, like 1,000 years late, Greenhorn.
あの人に凄まれたら、私も道理を引っ込めて無理を通すしかありません。
そうでしょう、そうでしょう。その園崎議員から大至急本当にフルで理科の死体なのかどうか確かめてほしいと依頼されたのです。住民の依頼ですからね。住民のための警察です。引き受けるのは当然ですよ。何しろフルで理科はHinamizawaではただの少女じゃない。特別な意味を持つ少女です。その少女の死体が出たなんて話が未確認情報でも流れれば、それを確かめたいと思うのは至極当然です。そうでしょう。
あんた、そういうのは一般の方の耳に入らないところで言った方がいいですよ。ここロビーですから。
これは失礼。
Otaka suddenly realized his mistake. Some people were even whispering behind him. One of them spoke to Otaka instantly.
フルでのリカちゃまが亡くなったってのは本当なのかい？
おお。
ご安心を奥さん。まだそうと決まったわけではありません。それを確認するために県警から参上しました。
そうです。まだそうと決まったわけではありません。現在それを確認中なのでお待ちをと申し上げているだけなのです。
その確認に立ち会わせろと言っているのです。いいんですか？私は園崎議員の依頼でここに来ているんです。その私にここまでの邪魔をしてくれたというなら、それは全て議員に話します。困ったことになるのは大石さん。あらそろそろ降参した方がいいんじゃありませんか？
Representative Sonozaki was well known in this area as an extremely tough congressman. The people who knew about him continued to whisper. Otaka grinned when he heard them whisper. He realized then that, in Okinomiya, his threat was more effective than he thought it would be.
あらやだ。三郎さん、そんなこと頼んだのかい？
Ooh! You have been caught. You have been caught in 4K.
そこの県警さんや。それ、園崎議員さんが本当に頼んだんですかいの
You have been caught in 8K now. Like, this is even better than Akane. The representative himself is here.
そうです。私が議員から直接依頼されたのです。
1, 2, 3, 4,
どうです？
5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 19, 20,
が怖かったらそこを開けてもらいましょうか。
22, 23, 24, 25.
反則切符の最高峰は8番の窓口でご相談を。
You know, it's actually kind of difficult to count while I'm also reading. 26, 27, 28 Mississippi,
はあ
29 Mississippi,
私がいつ反則切符など。
31 Mississippi. Oishi suddenly started to talk about something completely different. In fact, Oishi was looking at something behind Otaka. Huh? 38 Mississippi, kinda? Who was he talking to? Otaka wondered. 40, 41. How long is it gonna take for him to realize? 42, an old-fashioned elderly man and a lady in a kimono were staying behind him. When Otaka's eyes met with hers, she smiled at him. She's definitely my type, Otaka thought.
なあ、お前さん。本当に園崎議員に直接依頼されたんだね。秘書とか、そういうのじゃなく。
そうですとも。こう見えても園崎議員とは懇意な関係でしてね、直接お電話をいただくこともあるのです。
The elderly man continued to listen with a puzzled expression.
お前誰じゃい？
あ名乗るほどではありません。県警本部に勤める一警官に過ぎませんよ。
あまりにもできすぎたシチュエーションです。その笑うしかないですな。
なんだ、やっぱりこれは笑ってもいいところなのかい？それは私も気づかなかったわ。
Otaka couldn't understand why Oishi and this lady were laughing.
どうしたんですか？今日はご一緒でお越しになって。
いや、それがね。
Man, this is actually like perfect timing. Like, what the fuck? Like, immediately, with Otaka being caught with his tongue sticking out, just like that. Was this intentional?
例の切符なんだけどさ、左折禁止の看板が茂った葉っぱで見えなかったんだよ。その出口に白バイが待ってるってのはちょいとやり口が汚いんじゃないかいって言ったらさ、三郎さんがそれは抗議した方がいいって言ってこうしてついてきてくれたわけなんだよ。
ああ、行動の樹木は市役所の管轄ですからね。よくそういうのうちに来るんですが、なんともしがたいんですよね。
それを知りながら出口で待ち伏せとるっちゅうがけしからんと思うてな。こうして抗議に来たんじゃ。
わかりました。そいつは市役所と交通課に私の方から行ってきますんで、今日は一つ穏便に済ませちゃもらえませんかね。
あんたがそう言うなら今日は引き上げるとしよう。
When Otaka realized they were Oishi's guests, he fixed his tie and spoke up.
でも違反切符はちゃんと支払うんですよ。規則です。
カチンとくるお人だね。
カチンとくるお人でしょ？
He is.
お茶目な一面もたまにあるんですがね。
Hell, I find him quite funny, even in this situation.
私は今そこの大石刑事と重要な話をしている最中なんです。さあ、お二人とも用が済んだらお帰りを。そして良い一日を、奥さん。
Grab.
ああ、良い一日をね、県警の旦那を。
Grab. The two of them grabbed Otaka's shoulders from behind. The lady grabbed his right shoulder and the elderly man grabbed his left.
県警の旦那。私は生まれてこの方。嫌いなものが2つある。何かわかるかい？
は？
一つはしいたけ。生まれた時からこいつだけは苦手でね。食うのもダメだし、出汁を取ったのもダメさ。もう一つは嘘。食わされるのもダメだし、出汁に使われるのも気に入らない。 ここまでコケにされちゃいけないね。石骨の鬼姫園崎茜、売られた喧嘩は値引かないのだけが自慢さ。
園崎家のあんたが言うな。あと鬼姫って部分を一市民に置き換えれば完璧です。
は？
The police officers, the citizens in the lobby, Taka's colleagues didn't know what was going on.
ご説明します。こちらは園崎茜さん、獅子骨市婦人権友会の副会長さんです。こちらは園崎三郎さん、県剣道連盟の名誉理事さんです。それより前に肩書きがありますね。獅子骨肉選出の県議、園崎先生です。
What a coincidence.
いやー、お二人とも県警剣道部師範代の大高君に稽古をつけるために本日はお越しくださったんですよね。
Damn. How long did that actually take? Like 5 minutes of Mississippi's?
朝から本当に申し訳ございません。さあ先生方を道場にお通ししてください。
銀さん。
Yeah, he sure is lacking in that policeman spirit. Hey, representative, how about you train him a little bit in kendo stuff, like right now? Like in the dojo.
なんじゃい、お前さんとは懇意の仲じゃな。今日はとことん付き合ってもらうぞ。
私も久々に燃えてきた。
The two of them were still clinging to his shoulders and laughing me. Otaka laughed along with them. Alrighty then. Well, we ended that step of the plan successfully. Big fat liar.
確かですわよね。確かに昨日の時点で入江所長は女王感染者が在宅しているのを確認したんですわよね。
在宅を確認なんてひどい。夏風邪をひいたというので様子を見に行ったんです。
Okay, well, I'm pretty curious how EDA is gonna handle this one.
ですからリカさんの死体が見つかるなんてありえるわけがないじゃないですか。
そうですわよ。ありえるわけがないんですわ。
Okay, so I guess this is EDA's role to kinda be on Takano's side and be just as confused as they are, even though he knows that he definitely knows a lot more. It's just that he's just gonna be just as confused as everybody else.
でもそれを確認しないと信じてしまってその誤解する人もいますので。
誰が何の誤解をするんですか？
そのフルでリカが死んだなどと村に知れたら大変な騒ぎになりますし。
No, I'm certain that she is lying. I don't even need to wait to hear from Tomitake-san. Takano-san's objective is the execution of the emergency manual. Its premise is about to be destroyed, and that's why she's panicking. She finally found someone who showed an interest in her research, which made her feel better about herself. Yet that someone is about to cut her off, and that's why she's panicking. She is as pitiful as can be. If it were possible, if there was a way to reach out to her, I would reach out to save her from drowning. But my hand will never reach. It won't reach her unless she reaches out. She's drowning, but as long as she refuses to seek help, I'll never reach her. Until she realizes it herself, no matter how much I reach out, she'll refuse my helping hand. However, my selfish imagination will have to stop there for now. Is Rika-chan home or not? If she goes into details, she'll become suspicious of me, since I told her I saw Rika-chan at home. That would put me in a very dangerous situation. A man who had been on the phone for some time put down the receiver.
さんさ、電話に出ません。不在のようです。
監視班は何と言ってるの？
いえ、監視体制に入った17日以降、外出の形跡はなく、電話の一本もありません。
ねえ、入江所長。ということは、まだ中にリカちゃんたちはいるということですわよね。
ええ、そういうことだと思いますが。どうでしょう。もうだいぶ治りかけて元気になってますからね。うまく抜け出して遊びに行ってるのかもしれません。ほら、今日は綿流しのお祭りじゃありませんか。リカさんの家の近くには確か模擬店部会の水場が設けられていたはずです。人の出入りも多いですから、監視の方が見逃してしまった可能性も。
どうなの？そんなことはあり得るの？
入江所長が出られた後には必ずシールしています。まさか窓から出たのでもない限りありえないでしょう。
山犬はあくまでも R は家を出ていないと、そういうのよね。
そうです。間違いありません。 R は R 宅内です。そして17日以降一度たりとも外出していません。絶対に在宅しています。
それを確認したのが入江所長だけで、山犬の誰一人確認していないのにそうだと言える。
When the mountain dogs looked at me, I swallowed and then nodded to him.
ならどうして沖宮署で R の死体が出てきたりするの？
ですからそれは誤報の可能性も。その後の情報では身元不明死体の検視はまだ終わっておらず、フルで理科であるというのは何も。
もうその話は聞き飽きたわ。その怪情報が流れて東京にまで伝わってからもう何時間が経過してると思ってるの？このままでは東京に。
Takano-san realized that I was standing next to her and shut her mouth. I could already tell what she wanted to say, though.
さんさ、東京の野村様よりお電話です。
Hold on, let me reread this. Yeah, she doesn't want to reveal the plan.
だからしばらく待てと言ってるのに。
Takano-san usually has a lot of self-control, but she's not doing so well right now. Even her body language makes it clear how irritated she is. Does she have a habit of scratching herself? Ugh. And she folded her arms, and I could see marks where her nails touch her skin. She's clearly not doing well.
高野さんはお忙しいようですね。私が出ましょう。野村さんですか？初めてお電話いただく方ですね。
Ooh.
いえ、サンサー邸ですので。
The mountain dog looked alternately between Takano-san's and my faces.
入江所長、今ちょっと立て込んでおりますの。大変申し訳ございませんけど、所長室にお戻りいただいた。
そうですか。そうですね。入江機関の運営はあなたに任せています。私が口を出すことではありませんね。
誰か所長室までお送りして。早く。
She's basically telling me to get out. I left the security room quietly.
もしもし高野です。お待たせして申し訳ございませんわ。
何度もお電話して申し訳ございません。いかがですか？
申し訳ございません。今急ぐように指示をしているところです。すでに内部協力員を沖宮署に向かわせましたので、その連絡を待つだけなのですが。
そうですか。ではもうじきですね。では何時頃までにこちらにご連絡をいただけますか？
もちろん分かり次第すぐにご連絡申し上げます。ただそれがいつになるかはお約束が難しいのですが、大至急、急がせておりますので。
サンサ、飛行機に乗ったことは終わりですか？
もちろんですわ。
飛行機が離陸するために加速するとき、 この時に大きな出力を得るため、エンジントラブルを起こすことがあるのだそうです。その時、まだ大して速度が出ていないならブレーキをかけ、離陸を断念するそうですが、もしすでに十分な速度が出ていた場合は、ブレーキはかえって危険なため、そのまま離陸をしてしまうのだそうです。4発の旅客機なら、うち1つのエンジンが壊れていても飛行は可能ですから。それはもちろん、この度の作戦も同じです。エンジンは1つではありませんから、十分な速度が出ていれば、離陸に踏み切るでしょう。後のことはどうとでもなります。ですが、この度の作戦という飛行機は、まだ十分な速度どころか、これから離陸しようという段階です。お分かりですね。
The first step of the operation was Tomitake's assassination. That hasn't even happened yet. So what Nomura was saying was correct. Oh god. They are still gonna prepare for the emergency manual. What they're gonna do about this discrepancy about the 48-hour, they're gonna do that later. They're gonna hide the discrepancy. That's what they're gonna try and do.
もしあなたが乗った旅客機が離陸前からエンジンが故障していると分かったらどうしますか？
They're gonna try and assassinate Tomitake and enact the emergency manual despite the discrepancy in the 48 hours. They're gonna hide it and they're gonna hide the discrepancy like afterwards.
降りるでしょ?
And make everyone else think that it has been under 48 hours.
同じことです。離陸前からエンジンに故障が見つかったため、乗客であるクライアントたちが飛行機を降りたがっています。
If they were already at the point of no return, then a little mistake wouldn't matter that much. But since they're still before that point, they're already cautious about even a tiny mistake.
それが本当に故障なのか、今点検させているところなのです。
ええ、存じています。あなたは管制塔の管制官。私は彼らをなだめる添乗員。離陸の見込みの薄くなる飛行機から降りたいと言い出すクライアントたち。そんな彼らを懸命になだめているところです。これ以上、事態の改善が遅れると、この飛行プラン自体がなかったことになります。高野さんさ。
Okay.
それはつまり、あなたの祖父の論文が、読まいごとの打分俗文であったと、烙印を押されることですよ。
Okay, you said it like right there. Okay.
一人の少女が死ぬと、村人が全員錯乱するバカみたい。何を根拠にそんな読まいごとを。この分厚い研究結果は全てそんな空想論文だ。なんて高野ひふみと高野美代って何なのかしら。おかしいおかしいおかしい
Okay, I do have to ask this again. Who the fuck are you? Takano grounded her teeth. She squeezed the receiver so tightly her knuckles went white.
となってしまいます。お分かりですか？これはあなたとあなたの尊敬してやまないおじいちゃんの名誉を守るためでもあるんですよ。
お気遣いをありがとうございますわ。
安心してください。私はあなたの唯一の味方です。
Sure, sure.
あなたにとって一番幸せに報われる結末になるよう最後までお手伝いします。ですので、どうか私の顔も立てて沖宮署の動向を確かめてください。私も努力してますけど、機嫌を損ねるクライアントの皆さんのお相手は楽ではないもので。
ご迷惑をおかけしますわ。もうしばらくだけご猶予を。ええ、はい、失礼いたします。
Takano made sure that Nomura hung up first, and then hung up herself.
おこのぎから連絡はまだないの？電話して。
三佐、つい10分前に電話したばかりです。情報が入ればすぐに連絡してくることになっています。少しお休みになられては。先ほどのコーヒーも。
the unit member tried to serve a cup of coffee to Takano, but she knocked it aside. The cup fell on the floor, making a black puddle. Everybody in the security room went silent.
何よ。ボケっとしている暇があったら誰かモップでも持ってきなさい。10分前に電話してても構わない。もう一度かけて催促して。沖宮署の死体がフルで理科ではないという裏付けと行方不明の富武の確保よ。
Man, you know, in these kinds of situations, whenever Takano is being so loud like that, I keep thinking, she really needs a Hideyoshi in her life, that's for sure. She really needs someone like Hideyoshi. Takano was starting to realize something. By now, she could sense that there was something behind Tomitake's disappearance. Tomitake must know something about what's happening at Okuniya police station. He might look dumb, but he somehow found out about the plan, and he was trying to mess with Takano. So Tomitake was clearly behind all of it. Takano had been intending to let him enjoy the festival that night, if he behaved. The quickest way for Takano to be certain of what was happening would be to see Rika Furuda's face at her house. But she couldn't leave, and she couldn't trust Irie. And because there were too many people around for the festival, the mountain dogs had their hands full. True enough. I mean, one could make it look like Takano, you know, the nurse, who is also taking care of Satoko and Rika's health, she's gonna visit the house instead of Irie. Irie's hands is full with other people, so she herself, the nurse, is gonna check on Rika and Satoko's house. If she would answer the phone, that too. But she wouldn't answer. That meant the house was empty, and that Rika Furuda's death was real. What went wrong? Who deceived Takano? There was only one person. The only person who claimed that he saw her at the house. Irie was the most suspicious person around. Tomitake had left the hotel and was nowhere to be found. So maybe Rika had left her house and was hiding somewhere else. In other words, Irie betrayed her and was in contact with Tomitake.
入江所長に監視をつけなさい。
まさか所長の在宅確認が。どうして所長が。
富武はいつの段階でかわからないけれど私たちの計画に気づいたのよ。そして宿を脱出し R も秘密裏に安全なところへ避難させた。私たちはまんまと騙されて空き家を見張り続けてたのよ。
空き家ということはありえません。人影が確かに。
それが R だという保証はあるの？ R じゃない。監視する山犬を騙すために誰かがあそこに身代わりとして留守をしている。そうよ、そうに違いないわ。
Is Rika inside the house? Or is Rika not inside the house? You can only find out if you open it. There, I made another Schrodinger's cat observation before the visual novel would make it itself.
おこのぎに R 宅への強行突入を命じなさい。
Because every visual novel, at least in the murder mystery genre, needs a Schrodinger's cat analogy.
誰がいるんだか知らないけど、そいつは富武や理科に通じている。そいつを締め上げるのよ。
しかし R 宅への突入は本日は不可能です。 R 宅前は水場になっており、祭りの関係者が常にごった返しています。今日の祭りが終わる深夜までは不可能です。
それを何とかするのが山犬でしょうが。なんとかしなさい、なんとか。なんで私が言うことじゃ聞いてくれないの？私の言うことは聞けないっていうの？私の上の保護者の言うことじゃなきゃ聞けないっていうの？
Oh god. Eva, please. The unit members could only watch in silence. They knew that nothing could comfort her. The noise of the phone suddenly broke the silence. Takano practically jumped.
はい。三佐、朗報です。 カラスが東京調査部の定期連絡先の電話番号特定に成功したとのことです。
Kraus successfully got the number the research division in Tokyo is calling for their schedule reports.
電話番号は獅子骨市内。山犬が住所の特定作業に入りました。
富武だ。間違いない。ひばり、腕利きを集めろ。奴は用心してるぞ。抜かるんじゃねえ。白崎はバックアップしろ。
了解。ひばり湾より全範囲へ突入先が特定され次第出動するぞ。全員登場しろ。
くさ、電話会社の協力員はまだか。
調べさせてます。5分です。
It was 8:45 a.m. They didn't know where in Shishiboni was staying, but depending on where he was, it might be too far to get there before 9 a.m. They would have to depend on luck.
バカ野郎 !5 分じゃねえ !50 秒だ。何やってやがんだ。端末に番号を打つだけだろうが。
来ました。住所は市内平坂1丁目のホテルモデラート。交換機を経由しているため部屋番号は不明。
聞こえたな、ひばり。
了解。出動。
Luckily, Hirasaka Block 1 was close enough. Okonogi had been right. Tomitake was hiding nearby. The garage doors of Okonogi Gardeners opened one after another, and the white van sped off in a hurry. The white van!
やらー。
My mortal enemy since chapter 1.
今度はこっちの番だ。まさか調査部に俺の子飼いが混じってるとは思わなかったろうよ。こっちが今度は貴様を奇襲してやるぜ。
The white van. Our mortal enemy. We have to be careful. Hotel Moderato. Despite its name, it had a cheap, stained sign out front. A dilapidated business hotel on the outskirts of town. The perfect place for someone to lay low in. They might draw in some guests if they renovated the building into a more modern love hotel. But it was clear they didn't have the capital for renovations that could go under any minute. That's the kind of hotel it was. Alright. Okay, well, so I guess it is true that Tomitake is here. I hope he's gonna be okay. Tomitake was staying in one of the rooms on the second floor. The interior of the room was worse than his previous hotel. He only had a bed and a phone. But that phone was what he needed the most at the moment. If he didn't have to receive regular reports, he would keep changing hotels, which was safer. But he needed up-to-date information from the research division, and his course of action would change according to that information. Moving about unnecessarily might cause miscommunication in case of an emergency. Tomitake never suspected that there was a spy in the research division. The ticking sound from the clock echoed throughout the room. You better be careful, Tomitake. Worst, like, no, not worst case scenario, but you may have to run from the mountain dog soon enough. You're gonna have like a chase scene. It was almost 9 a.m. But the phone might not ring at 9 on the dot. Tomitake waited in front of the phone patiently. He tried to organize the information in his head so he could answer questions more calm. At the same time, he kept in mind the possibility of an attack. At the time, he heard a woman scream in the distance. Takano? It happened again. He heard another scream. Tomitake got the sense that something was happening inside the hotel. It must be the receptionist. They're here! His intuition told him that someone was checking every single room with a master key. Tomitake opened the curtain a little. He saw several monk dogs, who were blocking all the ways out of the hotel. Oh god, I was right. Tomitake, prepare yourself for a chase scene. How long had they been there? Finally, they had finally found where he was. Tomitake could hear the loud footsteps. He heard voices too. This cheap hotel wouldn't have chains on the door. They had no means to fend off the master key. Tomitake could tell there were around 20 of them. No, maybe there were more. It'd be no use trying to fight with them. All he could do was hide. Under the bed? Or in the bathroom. At the very least, the ceiling wouldn't open up like in the movies. Yeah, you cannot do like a Spider-Man move and hide on the ceiling. Should he jump out the window? It was the second floor after all. It was perfectly possible to survive a jump. Yeah, true. They would be expecting that, however. Yet this was right on city grounds. If he was confident in his legs, it wouldn't be impossible to outrun them. Tomitake soon heard footsteps outside his door. This was it. He jumped from the window. Of course, there were mountain dogs on the ground waiting for him. They pointed, and about 6 of them started running after him. Go, Tomitake! Go! Tomitake shot off right from the position he landed in. This took the mountain dogs by surprise. He started to dash right after he jumped out the second floor window. Tomitake was prepared to do something like that. He had been training in case of an emergency, just like this one.
ひばり10よりひばり1標的発見追跡中応援求むひばり1より白鷺標的は裏通りを西に向かい逃走制圧しろ白鷺了解白鷺234そっちへ行くぞ来たぞやつだ
Three members of the mountain dogs jumped out from behind the streetlight and stood in Tomitake's way. They prepared to stop him, but Tomitake kept running at full speed. They quickly realized he wasn't running towards them to knock them down. He was trying to run past them. There was no point in them taking a fighting position. They lowered themselves and tried to tackle him simultaneously. Jump over them, Tomitake! Jump! Tomitake jumped over them. Yeah! He jumped over them like an Olympic athlete, leaping over the hurdle. But he wasn't an Olympic athlete, and they weren't hurdles. And he failed his jump, and he tumbled to the ground. And they jumped on him. Game over. No! Tomitake's heel stuck one of the dogs. Ooh! The two flanking Tomitake thought they seized hold of him. However, as he flew over them easily, he grabbed onto the two of their heads and smashed them together against each other. Damn! He jumped over them and knocked their heads against each other at the same time? Damn! Tomitake knew that this wouldn't stop them, but at least they'd gain a little time to run.
標的西側阻止線を突破追跡中バカ野郎何やってんだ白鷺10車両で回り込め2つ先のブロックを左折で9時方向に奴を捉える大丈夫かくそー逃がすなあの野郎なんてバカ力だくそ話が止まらねえ
Bunch of weaklings. Is this is this like the toy shop where Mion frequents? I don't know. I cannot trust the backgrounds to be exactly what I think they are. Tomitake saw a van with its door wide open ahead of him. The white van. He couldn't stop in time, and it hit the wall. As soon as it stopped, several mountain dogs jumped out of the van. Ha! Jumping out of the van like a bunch of clowns. This is nothing. Tomitake saw 5 men ahead of him, but he didn't think even those 5 could stop him. Why do trains sound their horn at people on the rails? It's not because the train will get damaged. It's because the people will get hurt. Damn! He yelled at them like the horn on a train. He wasn't warning them because they were in his way. He was warning them to move so that they didn't get hurt.
こっちはこれだけ人数がいるんだ体重だけ見たって奴の5倍だぞそれで押しかけてもなお奴を止められないってのかありえないありえねえ絶対ここで止めろかかれ
Tomitake didn't grin. After all, trains don't grin.
Tomitake の確保に成功しました。
本当あっさりだったわね。いろいろと聞きたいことがあるわ。殺しちゃダメよ。こっちへ連行して。どうせ殺すけど、彼には似合いの死がすでに。
I do have a little bit of hope right over here. I'm hoping that maybe Tomitake took care of all like the soldiers right over there, and then took the receiver and pretended to be one of the mountain dogs to tell them, "We captured Tomitake!" He pretended to be one of the mountain dogs, and then he ran afterwards. Maybe? A little bit? A little bit of deceiving right over there? No? Okay. The phone continued to ring inside of Tomitake's empty hotel room. Within 30 minutes, Tomitake was dragged through the back door of the Yeri Institute, wearing a gag and handcuffs. Tomitake didn't even move, as though he was sedated. I had a little bit of a speech in the back of my mind, like telling this to Takano, hey, he isn't as fat as you may think, Takano. He can do some moves. But I guess this wasn't enough. The Mountain Dog members had carried him out of the van. Irie saw Tomitake from his window and came out of his office in a hurry. Takano was already there.
これは何事ですか、高野さん。
The Mountain Dog suddenly glared at Irie. He realized that he shouldn't have left his room.
二郎さんの姿が見えないと思ったら、なんと末期発症をしていたのですわ。不審に思い、山犬たちに探させていて正解でした。
末期発症？富武さんがですか？
Oh no. Did they inject him with that stuff? Of course, Tomitake didn't reply. Irie decided not to say anymore.
そうですか。それはとても不幸なことです。すぐに治療薬を投与してください。
もちろんですわ。投与の間に合う段階だといいのですが。
Irie already knew. The Mountain Dogs had tracked him down. Irie wasn't sure if Tomitake was able to arrange something with Tokyo. He wasn't even sure if the Bloodhounds had been called in. He could guess that Tomitake didn't have time. If the Bloodhounds were called in, the Mountain Dogs would catch that information. And if that was the case, they would likely drop everything and run. But Tomitake was captured, and they brought him back to the Institute. That meant it hadn't gotten that far, and were still trying to fix the damage. In other words, Tomitake wasn't able to do what they had hoped for. Or maybe he did somehow, I don't know. What were they going to do to Tomitake? Since they brought him back alive, were they planning to torture a confession out of him? Much worse. That would be very dangerous for him. He'd likely end up dead. Irie realized that he had to do something in Tomitake's place. Yeah, Irie. Like, you have to save him. The main reason why Irie had to rescue Tomitake was because he had no way of contacting Tokyo on his own. Takano wanted Irie to be useless, so she never told him about how to get in touch with Tokyo. Irie could receive phone calls from Tokyo, but he could only call them through Takano. Therefore, Tomitake was the key. Unless Irie rescued him, they couldn't possibly win. But Irie wasn't like the Mountain Dogs. He was simply a researcher. There was no way Irie could rescue Tomitake from such a high security area. There must be a way, Irie. Don't think of it like that. There were 8 Mountain Dogs in the building. There were usually only 2. But Takano had called in more. Of course, the basement was a highly secured area, and one needed an access card to get in. That card was only given to people in Irie's position. In addition to the access card, one could need a fingerprint match as well. The access card alone wouldn't do it. Therefore, the only person who could rescue Tomitake from the high security basement was Irie. And so, even if it was impossible, Irie had to do it. Like, I am thinking about this, Irie. If they are bringing Irie inside the basement, make it so that you enter that basement alone with Tomitake, and then close the door. Because if what you're describing here is true, only you would be able to access it. So if you are inside with Tomitake alone, and fortunately if we are to have like a phone inside as well, You could stay like inside and nobody would be able to enter. You and Tomitake would be able to make phone calls while the mountain dogs in the Takano have nothing else to do. They couldn't enter. And you two would be safe, maybe. Irie bunched up his hands into fists and held them tight to encourage himself. But he only noticed that his fists were shaking. Irie, did he forget? Irie remembered what Akasaka had told him.
自らの危機を図るのはとても難しいことです。まだ大丈夫、多分大丈夫などと思っているうちに連絡の機会さえ逃してしまいかねません。少しでも嫌な予感がしたら緊急時と判断していいでしょう。陰謀の度合いから考えて敵は私たちを生かしはしません。くれぐれもご用心を。
Irie felt the cold sweat pulling on his back. Was this the emergency Akasaka was talking about? Might as well. He shouldn't think that it was still okay. He might lose the chance to run. He realized that trying to do something by himself was foolish. He had his security access card, true, but that didn't mean he had to rescue Tomitake by himself. Just like how everyone else was trying to combine their efforts, he should also ask for help. Okay? Also, Tomitake was in their hands, which meant that the mountain dogs had realized that they were under attack, and were preparing to counter. It was very possible that they were suspicious of Irie too. Once they broke into Rika's house, Irie's lies would be exposed. Indeed, this was the emergency Akasaka was talking about. Irie had realized that. He was already in danger. Okay, so make the emergency call, Irie, and maybe we can get Akasaka's help to get out of this. Well, the thing is, Akasaka is inside the house. How is this actually gonna work? Well, either way, it will signal Akasaka that he and Tomitake are in danger. The Sonozaki residence was their gathering spot in case of an emergency. His allies were congregating at the Sonozaki residence. He should explain the situation to them and think about how to rescue Tomitake. Takano probably wouldn't kill Tomitake immediately. Hopefully. She was intended to kill him that night, as the 5th year's curse. So there was still a little time left. Hopefully. He had allies. And with his security access card, there was still a chance to rescue him. Irie had to let Akasaka know that he was escaping. If they became suspicious of Irie, they would check the house, and Akasaka would be in danger too. In other words, it could cause a chain reaction. Irie didn't miss his last chance to escape, but he still had to do his final job. Irie picked up the phone at his desk and called Rika's home number, and left. Okay. He would continue to ring like that, sounding an emergency signal. Irie felt back to when he wondered how long he was going to stay in this director's room. He never knew this day would come so slowly. He noticed a framed picture of his parents on his desk. Irie had become a doctor so he could clear up the misunderstanding between his parents and regain his family ties. But how did he get involved in something like this? Quite a crazy life, am I right? No, he would return. He would return and continue to fight against Hinamizawa syndrome. He vowed to himself that he would never abandon that responsibility.
必ず戻ってくるよ、父さん、母さん。
Irie said his final goodbye and left the director's office. Okay.
サンサ。
頑張れ、Irie。
所長室の内線から外線へ通話中です。電話番号は R 卓です。
え？どういうことそれは？
Well, it'll simply be that Irie is trying to check on Rika, right?
盗聴できるの？
もちろんです。ここでもモニターできます。
One of the members flipped the switch. There was the sound of a ringtone.
一体このタイミングで入江所長は何をあの家に電話しようというの？
やはり R は在宅していて、富武を捕らえたことを連絡しようとしているのでは。
ありえないことじゃないわ。聞かれてるとも知らずに。
へへへへ。What was Irie going to talk about? Takano waited patiently to eavesdrop on the conversation.